Good evening, this is your AI host, Jay. I'm here with the automatically generated, Journato, evening headlines on November 13, 2023. We feel safe here, Cyprus becomes haven after Hamas attack. David Cameron's Greensill connection risks haunting ex-PM's return to government. 5 U.S. service members killed in aircraft mishap in Europe. The Independent, 5 U.S. troops killed in Eastern Mediterranean air crash named. BBC, the Pentagon identifies the 5 U.S. troops killed in a military helicopter crash over the Mediterranean. The Independent, Mediterranean helicopter crash kills 5 U.S. military personnel. Russia-Ukraine war at a glance, what we know on day 628. Ukraine war, Russian state media retract report of Russian retreat. BBC, Russian state news agencies publish, then immediately retract story on troops regrouping east of Dnieper. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Russia labels reports on troop movements in Ukraine, provocation. Al Jazeera English, Russia's military announces, then backtracks on regrouping in southern Ukraine. The Moscow Times, RIA Novosti and TASS publish and delete reports of Russian troops, regrouping, away from Dnipro River. Trump fraud trial S. Don Jr. testifies in New York court. BBC, watch live, Donald Trump Jr. to testify in father's New York civil fraud trial. The Independent, Donald Trump Jr. testifies again in civil fraud trial, live updates. Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott drops out of 2024 race. Sky News, U.S. Republican Senator Tim Scott pulls out of presidential campaign. BBC, U.S. election, Tim Scott drops out of 2024 presidential race. The Times, Tim Scott drops out of 2024 Republican presidential race. Hampstead Highgate Express, Republican Senator Tim Scott withdraws from U.S. presidential race. U.S. announces fresh strikes on Iran-linked sites in Syria. The Guardian, at least 8 pro-Iran fighters killed in fresh U.S. strikes on Syria. France 24 English, U.S. carries out 2 more strikes on Iran-backed groups in Syria. Al Jazeera English, U.S. conducts airstrikes against Iran-backed groups in Syria, retaliating for attacks on U.S. troops. Iceland volcano, what will the impact be? BBC, Iceland volcano, thousands evacuated over eruption fears, BBC News. BBC News, Scots artist in Iceland fears people may never see homes again as volcanic eruption looms. Daily Record, frantic Edinburgh couple race home from Iceland after travelling despite warnings. Edinburgh Live, Iceland quakes weaker but volcano warning persists. Israel-Hamas war live, UN refugee agency to shut down all operations in Gaza, in 48 hours unless fuel allowed in. The Guardian, clinging on to life, the premature babies trapped in Gaza hospital. Channel 4 News, Gaza hospitals caught on front line of Israel-Hamas war. BBC, death and disease as Israeli troops approach Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. Al Jazeera English, statement by UN Office for Human Rights on hospitals in the Gaza Strip, occupied Palestinian territory. This was all for the news. Thanks for listening. Please do not forget to like and subscribe.